said it like that. That was weird. So the Etruscans like to gamble. They like to play chess. Chess is a game that dates back a long time. The Etruscans also watch sports, and that's what they would gamble on. The popular sports in Etruscan society were wrestling, running, boxing, and horse racing, and they would bet on those sports. The Etruscans also loved music and dancing. The dances usually took place in religious ceremonies, and the most popular instrument was something called the lyre. So I'm going to show you a picture of that. It looks like this. It looks like a harp, but sometimes kind of sounds like an acoustic guitar. So I'm going to play some lyre music. Wait for it. Oh, and look, there's an ad. I don't know why. Okay, here we go. So we're gonna keep the lyre music going a little bit as I explain the notes. So you can hear it, and it's kind of like when we say music and dancing, it's not like the TikTok dances that are super fast and coordinated. It's more like a waving your arms slowly in the air to this kind of music. All right. Now, I'm just going to kill the music because that's enough of that. You get the idea. So, there were three groups in terms of class systems in Etruscan society. So we have the lower class. Unfortunately, the Etruscans and the Romans and the Latins, just like all the ancient people, did have slaves, and they considered the slaves property, not people. So unfortunately, all of the ancient people are so messed up with their value system in terms of that. Middle class was farmers, traders, and city workers. And then your upper class are your priests, your nobles, your rich people, and your landowners. All right, so if you were super wealthy, you lived in a one-floor home that was made out of sun-dried brick and wood, and that home had a clay roof and stone drains that went from the house to the street. So that way, you didn't have the situation of like lots of floods. Most homes, if you were rich, even had courtyards. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So instead of having a backyard, this would be in the middle of your house. It's a courtyard. So all of the surrounding walls here are parts of the house. So if you were going from this part of the house to that part of the house, you could go the long way around here, and that's the way you would go, obviously, if it was raining, or you can go across the courtyard. So if you're wealthy, a lot of times you had a courtyard in your house. All right. Now, the Etruscans believe in the same gods and goddesses as the Greeks and everything, but their experience is a little different. So they believe the universe is divided up into provinces, into sections, into groups. And they believed that humans lived in the center of the universe, facing the direction of south. They believed that the gods of death and the underworld were to the west. And the reason for that is if you look on a map, let me get a quick map of Europe up here. I didn't have this ready to go. Map of Europe, go. Hope if my computer's slow because I have so many tabs open because I'm doing so many things. Come on, go. I'm doing that thing that you hear me do in class where I'm like trying to make it go. So it's loading over here. We'll come back to it. So they believe the gods of death and the underworld are to the west, and the gods of the heavens were to the east. So, what? No, map of Erie Canal. I'm leaving this in because it's funny. I'm not editing it or anything. All right, map of Europe. Here we go. So here is the Etruscans in Italy. So the reason that they're believing that death and the underworld are to the west is there's two. Well, one is not a lot of people at this time know that there's land on the other side of this ocean here. So that's reason one. Reason two is you might remember from Egypt, the sun sets in the west. So they thought like that's where things go to die. Now, the reason they thought the god of the heavens were to the east is they believed the gods lived on Mount Olympus in Greece, and that's to the east of the Romans. So that's the deal with that. All right. So the Etruscans would build their temples and their cities to face the direction of east, the direction of Mount Olympus. They believed the gods controlled everything, and they would do whatever they could to keep the gods happy. And a lot of times, the Etruscans would go to these people called soothsayers. Those are like fortune tellers. They believed they were people that other people believed could predict events. And what the soothsayers would do is they would read and interpret omens. And omens are signs that they thought would mean like a future. Like, for example, if you were in ancient Rome and you went to a soothsayer and you said, last night I thought about my future and then all of a sudden lightning struck. What does that mean? The soothsayer might be like, well, that might be an omen, a sign from Jupiter, which is the Roman name of Zeus, that maybe your future is going to be not so great. So a lot of times thunder or the direction of the flight of birds were popular ways that the Etruscans thought the gods were talking to them. So a lot of times they would go to the soothsayers and be like, I saw these birds flying in this pattern. What does it mean? And the soothsayers would take a guess. All right. Now, this next thing is a little bizarre. So when somebody died, and they were someone that owned slaves, what they would do is this: they had two of the slaves fight to the death at the person's funeral. Well, not really at the funeral, after the funeral. So I use the phrase death banquet here, which sounds weird, but it's the kind of thing like if you've ever gone to a funeral, you probably know that one of the things that a lot of societies do is after the funeral, there's like a lot of times a lunch for people to get together and mourn together and things like that. And that starts with the Etruscan society. So they do that too, but this is something obviously we don't do. They had two slaves fight to the death. And if you are the slave that died, they believed that, okay, you would go on to serve that noble in the underworld. You'd be their slave for eternity. If you were the slave that won and killed the other person, you were granted your freedom. So this became something that people were like, I'm ready for the slave fights, because the slaves would be fighting intensely to try and get their freedom. And eventually what happens in Roman society is people are like, we shouldn't just watch slaves fight at funerals. We should watch them fight all the time. And that's how the gladiatorial games kind of come to be. And the next time you have social studies, there'll be all notes on gladiators and stuff. All right. So the dead are buried in tombs called catacombs. They are underneath the ground. And if you've ever been to Europe, especially in places not just Italy, but in France, it's like a tourist attraction now. You can go visit the old catacombs of Roman society. If you're like, wait, you said France, Rome's in Italy. Spoiler alert, Rome is going to conquer France. So, and in Roman society, a cemetery was called a necropolis. So if you were wealthy, you got an underground tomb called a catacomb. If you were not wealthy, they just buried you in a pit called a necropolis. Well, the area where the pits were the necropolis. So polis, you remember, means city-state. Necro actually means dead. So a necropolis translates to mean city of the dead, cemetery. All right. Now, the Etruscans, Romans, and Latins have a lot of intermixing, and they influence each other. And the Romans, the first king of the Romans is Romulus. He actually did exist in society as a king. It's just the whole, like, you know, that whole story, like his dad's not Mars, the she-wolf, that's all, like, obviously legend. So they mix so much that the first time that an Etruscan takes the throne in Rome, it's this guy Lucius Tarquinius. He's the first Etruscan king of Rome. So the Romans and Etruscans and the Latins all mix together, and they start to influence each other a lot. So I'm going to go through a bunch of things that influenced the Etruscans. Arches for bridges. So the architecture design of an arch for a bridge is going to make the bridge stronger. And I'm going to show you a picture of that. So what it means is this. Now, it's not just so that boats can sail under like this, because boats can sail under a bridge without an arch like this. What the arch does, if it provides support, so you can hold more weight on a bridge that has an arch than you can just like one post here and one post here. Because a lot of times on bridges that have like just a post and just a post, is they're weak in the middle and that's going to break. But the arch gives support to the middle. So this makes their bridges stronger. All right. The next thing that the Etruscans get from the Romans and the Romans get from the Etruscans, they influence each other with, is sewer system. Yay! That means improving health. Now, unfortunately, I don't mean like bathroom sewers, like that kind of stuff. It's more like a water system where you can now get running water and do things like wash your hands and things like that, which obviously is very important. And their whole water system is based on something called an aqueduct. So let me get you, do I have an aqueduct picture? I thought I did. I don't. I totally thought I had an aqueduct picture. All right, hold on. You know what? Here's the thing about that. Like, if we were in real school, and I totally spelled aqueduct wrong, but I don't care. I just want a picture. If we were in real school, you would be able to see pictures of aqueducts because they would be on the bulletin board. Maybe that's why I didn't have a picture ready to go. Here we go. So here is some nice pictures of aqueducts. So they're essentially, aqueducts are bridges from water for water. So the water would come high up from the mountains, because remember the snow-topped mountains. So the Etruscans and Romans built these systems where essentially like pipes, like little roads and stuff would bring the water from the high up land to the lower land, which is pretty cool. And yeah, there are still parts of Europe that these aqueducts still exist. They don't still work and everything, but you can go see them if you go to Europe. So that's all connected to the sewer system. Next, the Forum. So the Forum is the center of Rome. Rome's government buildings and courts are there. Forum is a place where people went to talk. And if you think about it, there are some websites today that still use message boards, and sometimes they're called forums. Let's see. Forum is another picture. Oh, here we go. I do have a picture of a forum. So yeah, this is the Forum. So you see the government buildings all around, and then this is the place where people would go and meet people and chat and stuff like that. And look, oh look, it's the she-wolf. I told you it was a thing. All right. Next, language. So if you take, I mentioned this earlier, if you take ancient Greek and mix in Etruscan, you get Latin, which is the language of the Romans. All right, gladiatorial games are something that comes about too. We're going to talk a lot more about gladiatorial games the next time you have social studies, but that is something else that they get. A triumph victory parade. So the word triumph today, obviously we know means victory. So the Romans and the Etruscans and the Latins would have these parades for heroes, and they would call the parades triumphs, which is where we get the word. And then finally, something called a Fosis, which is a symbol of power. I'm going to show you what this is. It's kind of like a scepter to the king. So it's a bunch of rods tied with an axe here. So it just stands for like a symbol of power. So if you were the king of Rome, a lot of times you would hold this Fosis like a symbol of power. And it's where a term for certain government styles today, fascist, comes from, because fascism and fascists are like one person in complete power that nobody can ever challenge and can never be changed. So that kind of dates back to the person, like the king has complete power because he holds the Fosis, the symbol of power. All right, now, the Etruscans also introduced the Romans to the idea of having municipal things. Municipal things are things that are for the good of the people, but they belong to the city-state. And we still use that word municipal today. It means like things that belong to the city. For example, the next time you see a police car, if you look at their license plate, on the bottom, it'll say municipal. Same thing with buses and other things like that. There are some buildings that have the word municipal on it. And then finally, probably the most bizarre thing about these groups is to form new cities. The Etruscans had a weird ceremony. They would get the soothsayers, these like fortune tellers, and say, find me the Mundus. Now, the Mundus is where the Etruscans believed it would be a secret pathway to the underworld. So 3 times a year, there was a ceremony with priests in an Etruscan city to make sure that the Mundus stayed closed. So like 3 times a year, they would like open it a little bit and say some prayers and then close it and be like, okay, the Mundus is now going to stay closed for the next couple months. So yeah, it's this weird thing. The Mundus essentially became the center of the city, and they put like a big rock in the middle that marked the Mundus, and that's what they're kind of lifting up 3 times a year. Now, if, let's say, Leonia had a Mundus, and we had to find the center of the city, it would be here. So, the exact center of Leonia, wait for it, is the intersection of Fort Lee Road and Broad. So this is the Mundus. Now, I'm not exactly at the Mundus. I'm a little further away because I wanted to show you this building here. I believe it used to, I don't know if it still did, but over here it used to say the words municipal. Let me zoom in and see. No, I can't zoom in, can I? Nope. It doesn't let me zoom. Oh, it does. Oh, you can kind of see words. So it says municipal right here because it belongs to the town. Now, if you're like, look, I see police cars, check their license plates on, for security reasons, obviously, every license plate is blurred on Google Maps and Google Earth, like this car. I went way too far. I went to ACS. But anyway, license plates are always blurred, as you can see here. For that. All right, so that is Etruscan fill in the blank notes part 1 and 2. All right, you've been answering questions all throughout this. So I will see you later as you awkwardly watch me